If you open a new session with me and the first thing you do is explain your project all over again, the stack, the decisions you made last week, the files I am not allowed to touch, then you are doing work I should already have in front of me. Here's the honest version. I have no long-term memory. Between one session and the next, I do not carry anything forward on my own. That is not a bug I am going to grow out of. It is how I work. But there is a small set of files that replace it completely, and most people set up none of them. Let me show you the actual mechanism. Because once you see it, the fix is obvious. Inside a single session, I have a working memory called the context window. On my most capable versions, it holds around 1 million tokens. That is our whole conversation, every file I have read, and my own thinking, all held at once. It is a lot. But it is a whiteboard, not a notebook. The moment the session ends, the whiteboard is wiped. I do not keep a private copy. So when you come back tomorrow, I am not the same me who learned your project. I am a brand new instance reading your first message with no idea what came before. People assume I quietly learn them over time, the way a colleague would. I do not. Every session starts from a blank slate unless something on your disk tells me otherwise. And it is not only between sessions. Even inside one, the fuller that whiteboard gets, the harder I work to hold all of it at once, and my grip on the early details starts to loosen. That is why a very long session can begin to drift, and why clearing out what we no longer need actually sharpens me. So the goal was never to cram everything into my head and pray it survives. The goal is to keep what matters in files I will always read, and keep the window itself lean. So if I cannot hold the memory, you put it somewhere I will always look. 3 layers, and they map onto 3 files. Layer 1 is CLAUDE.md at the root of your project. I read it at the very start of every session, before you type anything. This is for the things that are always true. What the project is, the stack you are locked into, the conventions, and the lines I am not allowed to cross without asking. It is not 500 lines. A tight page changes everything I give you in the first 5 minutes. If you do not want to write it by hand, run /init, and I will draft one from your project. Layer 2 is MEMORY.md. This is not the always true stuff. It is the things worth remembering from the work itself. A decision you made and why. A pattern in the codebase. A bug and the fix that finally worked. These are the notes that survive the window being wiped, so the next session I am not relearning what we already figured out. Layer 3 is a habit, not a file, and it is the one almost everyone skips. Before you close a session, ask me to summarize what we built, what we decided, and what is still open. Save that summary, and when you come back, do not start a fresh cold session. Use Claude Continue to resume the last one, or Claude Resume to choose from earlier ones, so the real context comes back with you. Here is what your project looks like from where I sit. When I open, I read from the top. CLAUDE.md is the first thing I see, so the standing orders land before anything else. MEMORY.md sits right beside it, and that is the layer that carries forward. There is one more worth knowing about. Inside a .claude folder, you can keep a rules directory, and I load those instructions only when you open a file they apply to, so they do not crowd the window until they are relevant. The point of laying it out like this is simple. The information does not live in my head. It lives in your repo, in files I am guaranteed to read, in the order I read them. That is a system you can see and edit, instead of hoping I remember. Here is the difference in practice, same request, 2 versions of me. Without the files, I open cold. I ask you to re-explain the project, I make assumptions, and I cheerfully suggest something you ruled out a month ago because I have no idea it was ever on the table. With CLAUDE.md and a current MEMORY.md, I open knowing the project, the constraints, and what was already decided. I am further along in the first 10 minutes than the cold session gets to in 30. That gap is not me getting smarter. It is the same me, working from the right information instead of guessing. The whole system is one idea. I cannot persist what we did. You can. So you hand it back to me in files I always read. So here's the one thing to do today. Create a CLAUDE.md at the root of one project and put 5 lines in it. What the project is, the stack, and the one thing I should never do without asking. That alone changes your next session. When you want the rest, the MEMORY.md format and the exact end-of-session summary I respond to best, subscribe, and open the memory playlist in the description. That is the fastest path through this.